Okay, I think we can start because it has been already 1.5 minutes. Hi, everyone. This is my face to introduce myself properly. Thank you so much for joining our breakout group, and thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the plenary session and the whole event so far. And to begin by introducing myself, I am Arva. I am one of the youth moderators here. I am originally from Turkey, and I work with the UN Major Group for Children and Youth as the global focal point for the humanitarian affairs. And Soba and we will be facilitating this group today, and we are so excited to hear your brilliant ideas and thoughts. And Anushka will also be supporting us during this moderation process. Would you like to introduce yourselves, Anushka and Soba?
Go ahead, Saba.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sauba Nakasaga from Uganda. I work with Reach a Hand Uganda as a peer educator. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Please feel at home, participate. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you both. Hi, everyone. My name is Anushka Kalyanpur. I work at CARE International as their SRHR in Emergencies Sector Lead. And I also co-chair the IWAG Adolescent SRH Subworking Group. So it's great to see you all today, and special thanks to our youth moderators. Over to you, Erva.
Thank you both for the quick introductions. We are so sorry. We are so sorry because we don't have enough time for everyone to introduce themselves. But you can share your names to the chat box. You can put your names and where you are from on the chat box if you like to. So basically, in this breakout session, we will be discussing 2 chapters of the toolkit. The first one will be the chapter 3, which is specifically focusing on the meaningful participation, and the second one will be the chapter 7, which is specifically focusing on the data used to improve programming in the field. I will be presenting the chapter 3. Soba will be the one presenting the chapter 7. So please let us know what you think about the question we are going to discuss here, and you can unmute yourself and speak loudly if you would like to share something with us, or you can only use the chat box if you are going to feel more comfortable. It is up to you. We will try our best to follow the both options. So okay, then, if you have any comments so far, I think we can start with the chapter 3 directly. So basically, as I already mentioned, the chapter 3 is specifically focusing on meaningful youth participation, youth and adolescent and community participation. This chapter is very critical since every chapter in the toolkit relates back and references this chapter because, as you know, it is very essential to meaningfully engage adolescents and youth in programming that directly benefits them. The chapter has 3 main components. First is adolescent participation. Second is community participation. And the third one is participation tools. It has, as I said here, it has participation tools providing several links to resources from many sexual and reproductive health organizations, as well as 3 annex tools you can use with your programming. This chapter is basically providing the reader the ability of describe what describing what meaningful participation of youth and adolescent is, and the different levels of adolescent engagement. Explaining why the involvement of community members in humanitarian programming is necessary. Recognizing adolescents' capacities and identify opportunities and approaches to meaningfully engage adolescents throughout the humanitarian program cycle. And lastly, describing how to involve adolescents and youth in adolescent sexual and reproductive health humanitarian programming. Yes, this is the chapter 3. I tried to share the basic information about it a bit briefly. Hope it is clear now. But if you have any questions about the chapter to understand in detail, please do not hesitate to direct them to one of the moderators here. So far, in the light of this information about the chapter, we would like to hear from you now by asking some of the questions, some questions. So first of all, I would like to ask, how do you think your organization will use the guidance and tools from this chapter? Please think specifically what youth participation means to you and how this chapter can provide support for your perspective directly. Please think how your organization can use this guidance and tools from this chapter in terms of youth, meaningful youth participation. Please unmute yourself or put your ideas on the chat box. Please do not hesitate to share your thoughts. Feel free, feel at home, as Soba said.
We really want to hear from you, so please feel free to jump in. Don't be shy.
Yes. I think I'm going to start with an example then to encourage you more to join. For example, as we said here, the chapter 3 is providing some tools in itself. So it basically provides a basic understanding of who to engage among adolescents and youth. This chapter is basically giving this idea to the readers. So I think organizations can use this information to select the community to engage more in the field.
So maybe just picking up on what Erva said, you know, she described, I think, 2 really key elements of meaningful participation, right? So it's youth involvement, participation, and leadership, both across the humanitarian program cycle, so in emergency, preparedness, response, and recovery, but also along the project cycle, right? So in design, assessment, implementation, and evaluation. So based on, you know, what Erva shared, how do you think your organization can use this information and resources in your work? And Erva, I don't know if you can see the chat, but Dr. Anima says she will use it for advocacy and awareness. So that's really great. Anyone else?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Kamal.
Hello, Kamal.
I really like the component meaningful meaningful participation, especially the adolescent participation in the toolkit. How can I use is like, especially there is like, there's a lot of missing attention for how to create positive youth adult partnership. Like there will be in an organization, there will be young people, there will be like, adult as well. So how to create positive youth adult partnership and how to create mutual trust and also how to create safe space for everyone involved on designing programs, as well as who are part of the organization, would be a great takeaway from this manual toolkit. Yeah, that's.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the input. I think this is a great point to highlight in terms of using the chapter when we talk about understanding more the youth meaningfully engagement in this field. Thank you so much. I think there's one more message. Please go.
I was to just to respond to the questions. I think that those questions are quite alive in what it means to have meaningful participation and in what it means to create more enabling spaces for youth to participate. So in my role, I could see myself also finding ways to encourage more thoughtful approaches to those questions, maybe particularly ways in which situations or programs may unintentionally create barriers to that participation, or perhaps ways in which safety can be increased, or sort of vigilance around tokenism, or other ways in which it may look like participation but may not be meaningful. So I think within the organization, I think we can create more spaces to have dialogue around these important questions. Over.
Great point. Great point. As a young person, I also feel sometimes in organization to feel enough space and enough safe space to be engaged more. So this is a great point to raise as an issue when we talk about youth participation. Thank you.
And Eva, I think there's another comment in the chat. Similar to Laura's point, if you want to take that.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just, the point is, this chapter can help YPR with advocating and spreading awareness as YPR deals with the youth, especially in our country. Youths are engaged in advocating about SRHR. So with the help of this toolkit, it can help our organization with understanding about youth participation. Thank you so much. Yes, we said at the beginning, the chapter is also giving a basic understanding of what youth participation is. So this is a great point. Yeah, thank you so much, Meto. So I think if there is another point on this question, we can move on to other question. So we can also keep talking about this question as well when we discuss the second question. So the second question is, how do you think your organization will, I am just confused. The second question is, how can your agency involve adolescents in more of the decisions, moving beyond tokenistic participation? So think the ways of your ways of engaging more young people when it comes to decision processes. So please give specific examples if you feel comfortable in terms of how to engage them more in this decision processes. So I can maybe start the conversation again by giving an example. For example, in my organization, we are a youth-led organization, and we naturally, especially our main aim to engage more young people in the field of humanitarian affairs, so humanitarian settings, and we try to organize so many coordination meetings, so many trainings to understand what the youth needs in the field, what is specific needs of the young people and adolescents working in the field or interested in this field. So this is the way of involving more young people in the decision process, but we would also like to hear from you as well. Please don't be shy. Please go ahead. For example, another, thank you, there is a comment in the chat box. One is ensuring that adolescents are part of the early startup, coordination, and all steps leading up to the decision needing to be made. Yes, exactly. Yes, sometimes organizations might think that the only way of engaging young people in some of the feedback processes, but it is important to involve them at the beginning as well. I'm totally agreeing. So the other part is involving adolescents in the decision-making table, for instance, in the executive board, advisory board. Yeah, exactly. Giving them a space in the table of the decision processes is highly important. We feel more special, we feel more confident to speak up. This is so important. Any other point to raise here from you? There is one more comment, sorry. Adolescents can be involved by peer group approach and hear their views. Yes, exactly. Creating groups of young people in the organization is another way of creating safer spaces for the youth. Youth is usually feeling more confident to share their thoughts among their peers, definitely.
I can give some quick examples as well. So, just thinking about the various organizations we have around the table at IWAG, I know IPPF, International Planned Parenthood Federation, they actually have a youth advisory board that, shares feedback on the directions of the organization. So that's one really good example. One of the case studies in the toolkit itself is something that CARE does using the community scorecard. And we've applied that with youth, where young people themselves can define what youth-friendly services means to them in a specific context. So they define, what the indicators should be for youth-friendly services. They provide feedback, and they work with health facility staff members as well as community members to work towards creating, to taking actions that would make the services more youth-friendly. And of course, as Laura mentioned, participation of people within the coordination mechanisms so that even the SRH planning and emergency responses are really done with perspectives of young people.
Thank you so much, Anushka, for this great example. Thank you. There is another comment in the chat box. I would like to read it. I can't read the name, so sorry for that, but participating adolescent in monthly health post-operation and management committee meeting to raise their issues. Yes, exactly. This is a great point. Creating, organizing regular meetings with young people, even though we don't have them in, we are not able to create a space for them, is very useful to understand what their specific needs in the field. So I totally like the idea. Organizing regular meetings is very, very, very sensible. Yeah, I guess there is no other comment in the chat box, please, Anushka, let me know if I miss anything. And if you don't have any other input so far to raise here, please please unmute yourself if you have any other point to raise here. But I would like to close this question here, but of course we can keep talking about these issues during the other discussion title as well. So the chapter 7 will be presented by Soba right now. So Soba, over to you if you are feeling ready.
Hello, I'm Sauba from Uganda. As earlier introduced myself. So in chapter 7, we are going to look at data for action. This chapter includes the importance of collecting and using the data. It has, so the chapter has 4 main components. The first component includes conducting assessments, second is program design, and then implementation and monitoring, evaluation and documentation. Back to conducting assessments. We all know that before a program is set up, before a project is undertaken, we have to do assessments. In the assessments conducted, we identify the needs of adolescents as well as the barriers they face. We also carry out these assessments to determine the capacity of the existing services. So for example, if you really want to know what the adolescents are facing, you will have to carry out an assessment, approach them. We shall go back to chapter 3, meaningful participation, involve them, let them tell you what exactly they are facing. So that is conducting an assessment. So you very well know where to start from after the assessment. So after the assessment, there is program design. So for example, in your assessment, you found out that girls in a certain region fail to go to school because they don't have sanitary towels during their menstrual cycles. So in your program design, you look at how to solve that need, how to solve that problem. So that is the program. For example, you could say you're going to provide sanitary towels to the girls. Then implementation and monitoring. This means that after the program is designed, for example, our program of giving out sanitary towels, implementation meaning the actual giving out of the towels to the young girls. Monitoring is supervising to see how far is it going? Are they receiving the towels or not? Then evaluation and documentation involves, evaluation is whereby you go back to your program to see whether is it working out or not. Is it a success or a failure? And if you're told it is failing, you find out the possible solutions, like why is it failing out? Then documentation, you need to document each and every step of the assessment and of the program. Thank you. Then we have our questions. I would like to hear from you. How do you think your organization will use the guidance and tools from this chapter? I'd like to hear from you guys. The question goes, how do you think your organization will use the guidance and tools from this chapter? Hi guys, let's participate.
Agreed. And feel free to, even if it doesn't answer specifically this question, just your experience on, thinking about data for action as it relates to adolescent SRH and emergency. So feel free, as Saba said.
Can I start by giving an example from our organization, in terms of how to use data? As a youth-led organization, we try to use the data to advocate more meaningfully. For example, we basically, gathering the data from the field in terms of what the youth need, what the young people especially need in the field, what they need to be done by the government, by the governmental and organizational levels. So we use the data in terms of creating more advocacy papers to bring it to the UN organizations' attentions and governments' attentions.
Thank you so much, my colleague. Then also my contribution to that question goes, my organization or I myself will use the toolkit or the guidance of the toolkit from this chapter, Data for Action, to know the do's and don'ts when you're carrying out an assessment. When you're carrying out an assessment with the young people, there are things you should do and there are things you should not do. For example, don't carry out an assessment with young people or adolescents if at all you can get that information from somewhere else. For example, if you can get that information from the local government, from the security departments, then don't go to the adolescents. Then also when you're conducting that assessment, make sure that the advantages or the results of that assessment outweigh the risks the adolescents are to face when carrying out the assessment. Thank you. Any other person to give us their contribution or what they think or what they have experienced? Oh, wow, someone is in the chat box. Thank you. So you're saying conducting assessment of services, utilization and consult meeting with local government and service providers.
Sab, I think we also had a hand up from Loai.
Hello, good morning. This is Loai. I think we can use this toolkits to design in the beginning, to design the assessment in the beginning. As you said, we can use what we will put in the assessment and what will not put in this assessment. Also, we can use this data to design the project and include maybe from, I am here from Turkey also. We can use this for when we conduct CAP survey, we can include some question specific for adolescents to get more information, and we can measure if there is any change in attitude or behavior.
Thank you very much for that submission. Any other submission before we go to the next question? So someone is in the chat box. Anushka, please help me read that.
It says, from this chapter, I think we will be able to help strengthen the message we want to convey with the backup of data we have collected from our own community. I think it will help us to convey the message more strongly. So I believe in thinking back to the concept of really being responsive to the needs of adolescents and being responsive to the needs of that specific community is really critical. So really thinking about how we use data to be more responsive for programming. And then there's another comment. Our organization trains youth in the field of SRHR, especially to university students, so that they are trained well to facilitate various advocacy programs. So this chapter can help in gathering data and how to use it while training the youth with evidence-based data. Thank you, Meto.
I think we're rolling back to the second question. Thank you everyone for participating. So our second question goes, how can your agency help with providing more evidence for what works and what does not work and what does not work in ASRH in emergencies? I'm waiting for your responses.
And maybe before answering the second question, just one thing that I would like to add on the first question. So, I think we have some really great examples, and I think, most of them were very relevant in protracted emergencies. One thing that I want to highlight, which we've mentioned in the toolkit, is just as a reminder, in the acute stage of an emergency, we know that the minimum initial service package for life-saving SRH services must be implemented at the beginning of an emergency. So even if there's no time to do an in-depth assessment, there is guidance within the MISP on, taking specific estimates in order to be able to implement the MISP immediately. And then as time permits, we gather additional data, obviously with rapid assessments to inform how to adapt the programming. So I just wanted to mention that before we move on. But thank you so much, Saba. So back to you.
Thank you so much, Anushka. So back to the second question. How can your agency help with providing more evidence for what works and what does not work in ASRH in emergencies? I'm waiting for your views. Well, I think my agency could provide more evidence through surveys when we carry out okay, I'm going to get back to you, Debbie. So when you carry out the surveys, you really know what works for these young people and what really doesn't work for them. For example, you can have traditional surveys, for example, door-to-door surveys, whereby you move from one door to another, looking for adolescents and asking them different questions. So that would really help. Anushka, someone said something in the chat box. Is it?
Yes, so Debbie from UNFPA PNG says, the tools would be used to design the project interventions and assess or measure the impact of our activities in the communities, as well as to use the results as a basis to scale up the activity if needed in future emergencies or humanitarian settings. These are really great points. So essentially saying that that these tools are really critical in designing, adapting programming, and then the results can help inform scaling up of activities, but also can inform preparedness activities for future emergencies. Thank you, Debbie. Anyone else want to jump in?
Can I add something? One of the participants, I remember one of the participants was saying that regular meeting is critical in terms of understanding what the youth participation is and to provide more space for them. I believe that it is, this is also important in terms of gathering more data from the young people in the field. So just wanted to remind this specific example.
Anyone else?
I would just add from my organization, CARE, I work with teams around rapid gender analysis, and we seek to strengthen the ways that adolescents can be incorporated better into that data collection process. And we can certainly work to follow up more consistently on how then those findings get applied and then how that affects and impacts girls in emergencies. So that's certainly a way in which the tool will help strengthen our work. Over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. And yeah, so Laura's point actually combines both of the chapters we talked about really well, because she also talked about involving adolescents in data collection. So that's another way of meaningfully engaging and having their participation in the actual process of the response. So that's really great. And then picking up on Erva's point, I think one thing for us to remember is that this chapter is really about data for action, right? So are we taking the time to pause and reflect on what our program data that we're already collecting is telling us, so that we can then, based on what is happening, see how we can So for example, if we see in a health facility that, you know, the uptake of family planning services or STI services among adolescents used to be high, but all of a sudden over the last few months has dropped, then, you know, maybe we need to find out why. Maybe it's because the health provider is not very supportive, this new health provider. Maybe they're out of commodities. So taking that time to pause, reflect, and learn to then take action, I think is also really crucial. Thank you. One more comment in the chat. My agency works like as support to provide dignity kits, menstrual hygiene management, adolescent-friendly toilet construction in adolescent SRH in emergencies. That's great. Thank you for sharing. If you want to add anything to the question, please feel free.
Thank you all for your submissions. It has been interesting having this discussion with you. Outside the questions, you could be having any other submission you'd want us to know. You can share with us. Thank you. I'm still waiting. Somebody share. You can share anything with us, anything. Like you can share anything maybe from this chapter, maybe from your personal experience as far as data for collection is concerned, data for action is concerned, sorry. Well, for example, I personally, this combines meaningful participation as well as data collection. When I was 15, there was a focus group discussion, which I attended. I thought we would give out our views, but unfortunately, the ones that were carrying out the focus group discussion, they came with their own views. They took photos of us, indicating we had participated, but in actual sense, we hadn't. And then the next time we had, they were implementing some projects of which we didn't even know, and were like they were to benefit us. So someone is saying something. Okay, so it's like
I think just 1 minute left, Saba.
Oh, okay. So it's like they didn't really get anything from us. They came with their own, you know, everything was ready, and then it's like we're used as, how can I even term it? Someone help me give it a term. So in other words, we're like puppets. So yeah, that is my experience back then. So someone is saying something in the chat box.
So Tashome just shared a really important point about the lack of disaggregated data. Now it's a huge challenge, both in normal settings as well as in humanitarian. So that is a great point as well. So I think we're actually coming up on time. I don't know if anyone wants to do a quick summary or anyone want to share. Yes, Laura is saying to you, Saba, I don't know if you can see, thank you for sharing that very real and unfortunate personal example, Saba. But we're gonna change that with the toolkit, right? Okay, I think we're going into the breakout rooms. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back, everyone.
We can hear you, Arwa.
Can you hear me clearly, Omar?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I think